This is John Jackson Miller, and you're listening to the Star Wars Canon Podcast. May the Force be with you.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Canon Podcast. I am your host, Brian Miller, and I'm so glad you've decided to join me to talk about our favorite thing in the world, yet again, Star Wars. And to join me tonight, to help me navigate this world of Star Wars canon and these movies and these books and these comics and everything else we're going to talk about tonight, is my faithful Wookiee co-pilot who owes me a life debt at this point. We're going to be training him on some canon stuff, but from across the pond in Cairo, Egypt, I know it's super late where he's at. Please welcome Mr. Usef Waly. How are you tonight, brother?
Brian, I not only owe you a certain type of debt, but I owe you a lot of debt. Like I owe you a force debt. It's exactly what I wouldn't say a life debt, but I owe you a force debt. I'm very well. Thank you so much for asking. You are a great person. I am so happy to have met you and to have been part of this podcast eventually. I can't wait to talk some more Star Wars with you. And true to your endeavor to make sure that I love Star Wars more, we're talking about making sure that I not only get up to speed with Star Wars, but experience the most Star Wars that I can. And that's my favorite thing. This is literally what I'm trying to do with this podcast. So I mean, you take the lead, and I'll show everyone what we're trying to do.
Fair enough. Hey, so like I said, man, it's been a while since we've had an episode. It's been a hot minute. We actually, nobody knows this. You and I sat down like 2 months ago to shoot this episode, this exact episode. We did the whole episode. We talked about everything. We talked about the Queen's Bloom that we're going to talk about tonight. We reviewed that. We did that. We did the villain bracket. We did all of it. And when I sat down to start putting the episode together, my audio somewhere in there just got so distorted you couldn't hear a word I was saying. You sounded great, but I couldn't hear anything. I was like, oh, man, we can't use this. And I tried so hard to salvage it. I really did. I even thought about going back and re-recording everything I said just to like mix and match the entire episode. And I was like, man, I don't think I can get it out. I don't think I can do this. And so we ended up having to reschedule this episode.
We had to do another mishmash of us together. That's it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it doesn't make more sense.
But, tonight, you and I are together. We were going to do it last night. Things didn't work out. We're recording tonight, finally. And we have got so much stuff to talk about in Star Wars, man. There's so much that has come out since we've done an episode. I don't think... I know that the Acolyte has wrapped up.
Fantastic?
Do what?
Isn't it fantastic? Don't you
it's great. It's amazing that we have this much Star Wars stuff, to be honest.
Exactly. Finally.
I know. Remember the Dark Ages when all we had was 6 movies? That was so hard to get through.
We're only a couple of years ago.
It wasn't that long ago. What, 10 years ago? I mean, it wasn't that long ago, honestly.
Exactly.
But I know we've wrapped up the Acolyte since the last time we did an episode. We had the entire series of Skeleton Crew air. We've had so many novels come out. I mean, it's been insane. Andor season 2 is now out, which I'm only halfway through. I still haven't finished the second half of Andor season 2. The last 6 episodes. I've only seen the first 6 so far. We were talking about procrastinating really bad before we went live. So I'm procrastinating really bad. My wife and I got back on Doctor Who, and we started back with the Ninth Doctor and started working our way through it again. So everything else kind of took a back seat. So I need to get caught up on some Andor, but
Doctor Who's fantastic.
I love it. Yeah, we're into the 10th Doctor.
It's a guaranteed hit.
It's great. It's great. So we were trying to get caught up into some of the newer stuff that they're doing now, and it was like the same thing happened now as what happened to me like 10 years ago, because Kirsty was watching Doctor Who like 10 years ago, and I was like, that ain't my kind of thing, which I had no idea it was my kind of thing. And so they did like the 50th anniversary where they brought all these doctors together. And I was like, okay, I'm going to watch that. And so I watched the entire show up to that point just so I could watch that 50th.
Right.
And then I watched up to Capaldi a little bit, and then I kind of gave up on it. And then now we've hit that point where they've like announced the next doctor. They've shown her, and I'm like, oh crap, now we got to go back and rewatch everything to get caught up again. And so we started all the way back over again, and we're working our way through 20 years of Doctor Who now. So everything else kind of took a back seat, but we're here to talk about Star Wars tonight, not Doctor Who. Sorry, I can't help it. I've got a couple of big loves in my life, and Doctor Who's one of them. Star Wars. So Usef, it's been a while since we've talked about Star Wars. Let's talk about Skeleton Crew first, because Skeleton Crew was a big one for me. I really enjoyed it a lot. I want to know what your thoughts are on the show before I kind of give mine on the whole show, beginning to end. I mean, what were your general?
So I'll be honest with you. First things first, it's fun. Like the main thing that I got with it was that it's fun. Something that you pivoted to, and you mentioned that, you talked about the characters and how they resonated with you in terms of other shows that you'd seen before. I'll be honest, the one thing that resonated with me, I'm not so in tune with American TV as you are, but if anybody's ever seen Treasure Planet and Treasure Island, that robot in there, he was beautiful. Obviously, the droid. He made it seem that it was like one of those beautiful, amazing sidekicks that so kooky, so fantastic. But I love the show so much, even though this is one of those shows that when I saw the kids, at first, I didn't like them so much. I was still waiting for the grown-ups to come in and show, what are we doing? How are we enjoying this? No. This was the exact opposite. They are the point. Showing them grow and become the challenge. That was so cool. So cool. And Brian, so you were talking about something about the show when we mentioned this a couple of months ago. It's something about them being not just what you're watching, but you're watching them grow. You're watching them become the show, basically, right?
Oh yeah, it's you see these kids, and they're basically us as kids. They were basically like this meta weird version of us as kids that had Star Wars books. These kids were reading Star Wars books. They weren't called Star Wars, but they were reading High Republic stuff. They were acting out lightsaber duels and playing with action figures, and they had starships the same way we did as kids. And they lived in like suburbia of all places, like this weird like ET suburbia that felt very Earth-like. And to them, there was nothing else really outside the planet beyond that barrier that was around the planet. And so that was very relatable, but to see them go from that and just get thrust into the Star Wars galaxy, and not even like the good part of the Star Wars galaxy. I mean like pirates and smugglers, and like, I mean, just right off the rip, like this wretched hive of scum and villainy that they just land on first stop. And that, I mean, you see where these kids end up by the time the show is over, and it had a very Spielberg feel to it, very Goonies-ish. It felt very, very Goonies to me.
100%. That what you just said, like the whole Spielberg sort of thing, exactly what it felt like. It felt so nice. It felt very familiar. It felt very good and wholesome. And at the same time, if they integrated it into Star Wars so that by the time, even if you're not into it, by the time you get to the last few episodes, it's exciting. It's actually exciting. And then when you get to those last few episodes and you see it culminate in that last finale, that's so exciting. It's so fantastic. It's such a good adventure. Honestly.
That's the great word to use for it, is adventure. Because I mean, these kids were, like I said, were just thrust into it. And I'll say this about Skeleton Crew: you guys, if you guys watched, this show and you heard me talk about it, or you saw me on Star Wars Newsnet talking about it, this was the one show where I was like, I was not even like remotely excited for this show. It sounded stupid to me. It's like, not stupid. That's not the word I should say. It sounded very childish. So when I was growing up, I had a show on Nickelodeon that I used to watch all the time, called Space Cases, and they canceled it after like 2 years. But to me, this felt like Space Cases in Star Wars, where these kids sneak on this ship and they blast off by accident, and then they're just trying to get home. And honestly, that's what the premise of this show is, but the execution on it was excellent. It did a great job, even though they didn't know what else was going on in the galaxy. They did a really good job of showing where this show takes place on the timeline. Showing some of the New Republic stuff. And remember they said they didn't even know the X-Wings were the good guys at one point. They were like, yeah, those are the good guys. And so they have no idea of anything that's happened. They have no idea that, the Republic has fallen and that the Jedi are gone and that the Empire rose and already fell. They have no idea any of this happened.
I love that, by the way. It was fantastic.
So cool.
That's such a cool twist on things. Like,
it was great.
Oh, we have no idea what's going on.
And that's great, because how many times do we watch something and, some of the characters already know stuff in the show that we don't know, but we were finding stuff out as as they did. And so we were experiencing it with them. Yep. You brought up the droid SM-33, Smee. That's his name, Smee. I love Smee. He was great. Smee was awesome. And Jude Law played an amazing pirate in this. He was an awesome pirate in that show. So I think Skeleton Crew is up there, like in my top 3 favorite Star Wars shows. I loved Skeleton Crew.
That's
great show.
Right there,
it was,
friend.
and I wasn't even remotely excited for it. I wasn't even remotely excited for it at all. And so I think Andor so far is my number 1, and Mando, like sans season 3, is number 2, and then I think Skeleton Crew is going to be number 3. I absolutely loved Skeleton Crew. It made me feel like a kid. And one of the things too, we were watching, and Kirsty told me after one night we watched. I think we got behind a week, and we watched 2 episodes back to back, and it was when they introduced that little owl creature in it. And because I love owls, I got owl figure. I love owls, and so when she popped up, I was like, "Oh, she's gorgeous. That is awesome." And so by the time we finished those 2 episodes, I remember she looked over at me. She's like, "You want to know how I can tell you love this show?" And I was like, "How?" And she's like, "You usually get like smiles and stuff on your face when you're watching Star Wars." She's like, "I can see your eyes watering," and so I was actually getting. My eyes were watering because I was just like, this is awesome. I absolutely made me feel like a kid again, man. And it was just the joy that came with it. It was great. Yep. So yeah, Skeleton Crew's up there for me.
No, this honestly, Skeleton Crew had a lot going for it, and we didn't even bank for that to happen. So that was fantastic.
We were sleeping on it.
And everybody was happy. I don't think so here's the thing. We haven't had the chance to talk about Acolyte on this show, on our podcast. I loved Acolyte, and GG loved Acolyte more than I did, but we haven't had a chance to talk about Skeleton Crew. And this show, so it hasn't had so much negative stuff going on for it, but all of us can counter it. Like, we love Skeleton Crew and the vibes that it brought us, is basically what I'm trying to say. Like, everything that Skeleton Crew had was just vibes. It was just cool. So everything Brian just talked about wasn't just something that, oh, by the way, like, I experienced this. Oh, I saw this character. Oh, I saw this. I saw an owl that I liked. Also, no. It actually vibed with us, and if you watch it, you'll understand exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, no, you're right. It does have its own kind of feel and vibe to it, and it was, I loved that. I absolutely loved that. And then what's also interesting is, and we could talk about Ahsoka also, because we haven't really talked about Ahsoka a whole lot either. But what's interesting is, because of the events of Ahsoka and where Thrawn has now ended up at with Ahsoka, right, on Dathomir, they put out a map of the galaxy, of the new planets and everything. Yep. And At-Aten from Skeleton Crew is like right next to Dathomir. It's like literally right next to it in the galaxy. They're literally just right there. And so I'm wondering if anything on Dathomir is going to end up happening with At-Atin. Because we know this Dave Filoni movie that's coming somewhere down the line is going to be the culmination of all these shows.
Somewhere soon.
I'll tell you what. I've never been more excited for a Star Wars movie as I am the one Dave Filoni is doing.
So here's the thing. For anybody paying attention, it's all about how soon this Dave Filoni movie is coming out.
I hope it's still years off.
It's not about when. It's not about if, sorry, but when.
Yeah. So we know they announced like Star Wars Starfighter, right, at Celebration. We know that's coming. The Rey movie, I think, got pushed back again. So I'm like losing almost all hope. What little hope I had for it. It's all whatever. But we know the Mando movie's coming out in less than a year. Less than a year from now, we'll have a new Star Wars movie, which to me, that movie is more of like it's going to be like a TV movie of Mando. You know what I mean? It's going to be a few episodes pushed together into one movie, and that's what it's going to be. But this Dave Filoni movie, the more and more stuff I watch of Star Wars, and Ahsoka really put me a lot towards this direction. He's going to go all out with that movie. I know he is, if he even still makes it, because there's rumors now that he's going to be taking over Kathy Kennedy and all this stuff and blah, 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 whatever. But before we really get into that movie, leading into it, we got to talk about Ahsoka. So, Usef, Ahsoka Season 1, we're reintroduced to Ahsoka Tano from Mando. And Sabine Wren, Hera, Chopper, all these people. And then we're introduced to Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. I know you are a big fan of villains. I know you love the bad guys. I know you love them.
Baylan Skoll.
What did you think of Baylan and Shin?
No. So anybody who has listened to a couple of episodes of us before knows that I am a huge villain fan. The reason being that I genuinely feel like the villains make the story, in my opinion. Please feel free to counter me, but I love how strong a story can be because of how strong the villain is. Baylan Skoll is such a fantastic villain. He's so diverse is the wrong word, but he covers many angles. So he's not just a Force user who has a lightsaber, and he's not just an educated in the Force ways and Jedi ways, etc. But he looks like a Templar, so he's relatable.
Oh,
and yeah, right. His build is fantastic, and it's such a shame that now we're gonna have to go in a different direction from the actor that did that. But the way he defeated Ahsoka was so profoundly good. And Ahsoka is this one beautiful, amazing hero who we haven't seen enough of. We've seen her be badass. We haven't seen her fleshed out. This is her being fleshed out, fighting someone like Baylan Skoll. And it was fantastic. It was beautiful. It was amazing.
Yeah. So
seriously.
Baylan's got layers.
Yes,
he's got layers.
He has layers. That's a really, really, really good way of saying it. He's got layers.
He's got several layers, and
because at the end of it, that whole sort of finale, sort of outro that we got. Outro, is that right?
Yeah.
When we were just seeing him at the edge of a planet, and he's looking beyond, because we don't know what his journey is, but we know what his journey is supposed to be is searching for more being within the Force, for more purposefulness within the Force, right?
Right.
You remember that
Yes.
at the end, like that outro that we saw. That was fantastic. I can't wait to see. I cannot wait until we can unpack that more. I just hope we get it, because unfortunately, it's very sad to hear, but the actor passed away.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. I can't remember if it was cancer or something else, but he passed away. So he's been recast by the same actor who is from, if we have any Game of Thrones buffs in here, the actor that does the Hound. Yeah, he's gonna be obviously it's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be a different take on it, but it's gonna be the
That's
same
fine.
vibe, sort of a big,
Yeah.
huge build with a knightly sort of attitude. I can't wait to see more of that. What do you think
yeah.
about this?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Balin is one of my favorite characters at this point. He won me over with that entire season. He like as soon as I saw him, I was like, dude, he looks awesome. You're right. He looks like a knight, like a Templar knight. Shin Hati is dressed the same kind of way. He got the
I hardly
pads and stuff.
I hardly
Yeah,
mentioned shit at all. I didn't even mention shit.
She's so Balin is this like calm, calculating, has layers.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, Shin is like the wild cat he's got on a leash that
Yep.
he's just waiting to let go. You know what I mean? Like she's just and so
Completely agree. Completely
and
agree.
you know what? I can fix her.
Shin is vicious.
I can
though.
fix her.
She's
I
really
could
cool.
fix her.
She's really, really cool.
She's very cool. I could fix her. I could totally fix her. I know I could. But no, seeing her and Sabine together, I think they played off each other very well.
Yep.
We got this nice little. There's a couple of nice little cameos in Ahsoka. Mon Mothma made an appearance.
Exactly.
3PO popped up. We had the Anakin Skywalker episode, with him and Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds, which
That deserves an entire season of podcasts on its own.
that's a whole.
just-
I called that too. If you guys go back and watch some of the Star Wars Newsnet videos where we were talking about Ahsoka as it was coming out, the week before that came out, I called that entire cliffhanger.
We had a
Almost
huge
word
bidding
for word.
war on our chat. Who was saying what's gonna show up when?
Yeah,
I thank God stayed quiet because I was just way too excited. Unfortunately for all of us, Brian got us all beat because he was like, "Anakin's coming up." I'm like,
I was like, dude,
I'm
if that
sorry.
episode ends,
how? I'm sorry, how? How is he gonna come up? And guess what?
my exact prediction.
Yeah,
My exact prediction
Big
a week before was like Ahsoka's gonna get her butt kicked in a lightsaber battle, and she's gonna end up in the World Between Worlds. And I was like, and it's gonna show her, and all you're gonna hear behind her is, "Hey, Snips," and then that was gonna be the end of the episode, and we were gonna have to wait a week to see Anakin. And I
More or
called
less,
it
that
down
hey,
to
let me just say
almost
something. So
the dialogue.
he literally, the man literally almost called it word for word. He literally just said,
Almost.
I can't wait to hear him say, "Hey, Snips," and that is more or less what happened. It's not exactly
Yeah.
what happened, but
No,
but
it's
more or
close,
less.
but it's as
that's what
close as I was gonna get on a prediction. I
You know,
nailed it.
honestly, to be honest, I wish that is what happened. Like that is how close what you said was. I would have wished to be like,
Oh my god.
if he said those two words, everybody would have lost.
Well, so
their-
he did in the show, but it was more because you hear the, "Hey, Snips, I didn't expect to see you so soon," and that's when she turns around and she's like, "Anakin," and he's just standing there looking at her. I'm like, I saw this show and I was like, I called it. I almost called it word for word. I was freaking out, dude.
No, the episodes, the vibes, the fighting, and then
Yeah, it was
the
great.
sort of the exuberance that came out from everything, and the interaction with Anakin going in from inside outside being like a dark side, light side, and then that was
Yeah, but
meta.
talked about all that just so I could say this one thing, and I say it all the time. On the Dave Filoni movie, on the one he's going to be making, if he's still going to make it, if he makes this movie.
If he's still gonna make it.
I know it's going to be a Mando, Skeleton Crew, Ahsoka story, right? I know that's what it's going to be fighting. It's going to be the New Republic fighting Thrawn. That's what it's going to be. We know that. That's exactly what that movie is going to be, and I'm here for it.
Maybe so far.
But the more and more I see of Ahsoka and who he used in Ahsoka and the characters that popped up, I know for a fact that somewhere in that movie, Han, Chewie, Luke, Leia, and the droids are going to pop up in the Millennium Falcon somewhere. They're not going to be the main characters of this movie. That's not going to happen. This movie is going to be about Mando and about all that. But they are going to be there because if there's a battle of the New Republic fighting the remnant forces of the Empire and Thrawn, why
Then the New
wouldn't they
Republic
be
heroes
there?
ought to show up.
Why wouldn't they be there?
Yeah.
Luke is the last Jedi at this point. Like, why wouldn't he be a part of that battle in his X-Wing in Red 5 with R2 fighting off, TIE fighters? Why wouldn't Han and Chewie be in the Falcon? Why wouldn't General Solo be in the Falcon fighting Thrawn? You know what I'm saying? Like, why wouldn't Leia be on a command ship somewhere directing forces? Like, why wouldn't that be a thing? So I know, no, I'm not going to say it. I know damn good and well that they're going to pop up in this movie. And
balls to bone.
Do what?
Balls to bone.
Balls to bone. I know balls to bone that they're going to pop up in the movie.
Yes.
So,
no, I'm with you. Brian is right. Honestly, if I am being the conservative one. If I don't see this in the Mando movie, then I'm gonna feel like something's going wrong.
Cheated.
You know
because
what I mean?
They're there.
Yeah.
And you might even see Ben Solo because he was born like
we
right
might
after the
even
Battle
see
of Jakku.
a young Ben. Yeah,
so you might see a young Ben Solo. So why wouldn't they be there? You know, so you put out a trailer for this movie, right? And let's just say, for the sake of argument, it's called Heir to the Empire. It's probably going to be called something different.
That tagline is worth a lot.
I know, right? Let's just say, for the sake of argument, it's going to be called Heir to the Empire.
No.
You put out a trailer for that movie that shows the Chimera with all these other like TIE fighters, and then the Millennium Falcon's like, you've got $1 billion movie lined up. There'd be people lined up around the block to see that, and then you do just like a teaser shot of all of them in the cockpit, and you just see the backs of their heads, and it's oh my God. Because you're going to be bringing together not only like Star Wars canon fans, right?
No.
You're going to be bringing like Star Wars fans who love Legends, who were mad they didn't get to see Han, Luke, and Leia together again.
Yep.
You're going to be bringing in people who are like in between and are like, oh, I love Heir to the Empire. Oh, they're doing a movie like version of it. Oh, heck yeah. Like you're going to be bringing grandma who watches The Mandalorian with you every Thanksgiving to see this movie because The Mandalorian's going to be in it. You're going to get everybody to go see this movie.
You're absolutely right about the magnetization of this. Like it's going to be such a magnet. It
caters to everybody.
Yes.
Absolutely. This could be the movie that fixes everything for the fandom. Maybe not fixes the fandom.
So that's what I was hesitant to say. It's it has such high potential.
It does.
I can't claim to say that's what it's going to do. It can't.
Oh no.
And I don't
even think
that's on their radar. I don't even think, to be honest with you, I'm gonna be a bummer. I don't even think that's remotely on their radar.
The movie?
No, not the movie.
That motivation,
bringing in the heroes.
That motivation.
Bringing in Han, Luke, and Leia. They might bring in Luke just because he had an interaction with Grogu before. That's that. And they might bring in Han and Leia off the side in a ship somewhere or on the planet, hearing the news of something, but not interacting with the events of the film.
Oh no, I disagree. I'm
not trying to predict anything here. What I'm trying to say is,
I
think they'll do is they'll just keep them going on their own path. It'll blaze through, and then we'll hear the ripples go out, and they'll
afterwards.
Oh, by the way, we just brought in Han and Leia on the side saying, "Oh yeah, did you hear about this going on the side here?" You know what I mean?
I disagree.
That's what I think is going to happen. I'm not saying. I hope I'm wrong. I
hope you're wrong too.
We're getting what Brian is saying. Guns blazing. We're gonna get fantastic, amazing like shows and stuff. I genuinely hope that we're gonna get the finale of all finales. That's gonna culminate in everything. I genuinely hope that we're gonna say like, "Oh, do you like Star Wars? You ought to watch this movie." Wait, I thought I was supposed to watch episodes 1 through 6.
This is the episode 7.
No. You gotta watch that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we are gonna bring this into the fold for essential Star Wars watching, I'm gonna be the happiest Star Wars fan there is.
Oh, absolutely. But right? I'm telling you, they have to be there. Because like even in Ahsoka, when Hera is talking to Mon Mothma and is trying to get the New Republic to give them resources to go fight Thrawn, Mon Mothma is scared when Thrawn gets mentioned. And she's like, Grand Admiral Thrawn? Like, are you serious? Like, and so you can tell she's scared. He's a big deal. He's a huge threat to the galaxy, especially if he's the one that's going to be in charge of the remnant forces. And you've already seen the magic that the Dathomir Great Mothers is going to be doing with the stormtroopers. You're going to have the New Republic fighting zombie stormtroopers under the command of Grand Admiral Thrawn. That is going to bring everybody out of the woodwork.
Oh yeah,
That's going to bring everybody. So
yeah.
there's going to be shots of them fighting. I know there's going to be. There has to be, because the way Dave Filoni does this, he only uses characters if it makes sense.
Yeah, but Dave Filoni does such an amazing job setting up the Death Troopers.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing. I can't wait to see them in action.
I'm
genuinely waiting on
the
them.
Night Troopers. They're called Night Troopers. Yeah. The
Night Troopers.
Yeah, they're awesome. I love that concept.
I can't wait to see them. Can't wait to see what Ezra does as well. Like Ezra coming back and stuff.
Yeah.
This show has so much going for it.
It's got a lot. Yeah. So anyway, that's a lot. That's a wrap up of a lot of the stuff we've gotten since we've done an episode. There's been a lot. We've got the announcement of Star Wars Starfighter coming out. We've got, all this stuff. Still haven't seen a trailer for The Mandalorian Grogu. Celebration has now seen 2 trailers, and we haven't seen a single one yet.
Yep.
Which is wild to me, to be completely honest. But I'm that one will be fun. It'll be fun to go to the theater to watch Star Wars again, even though it's going to be just 3 or 4 episodes of Mandalorian. I'm excited for that. But yeah, that Dave Filoni movie, that one's, I've never in my life been this excited for a Star Wars movie and the potential that this movie has. So, let's get into the villain bracket real quick, and then we'll get that knocked out, and then we will move on to our review for tonight.
For the villain bracket first, I like those.
Yeah, let's do the villain bracket first. Since we're sitting here talking about bad guys and Balin and Shin and everybody else, let's talk about the villain bracket. So, Usef,
I love a good bad guy.
Give a quick rundown for new viewers on what this villain bracket is.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, joining us on the Star Wars Canon Podcast, we'd like to tell you that we love to talk about all sorts of things that bring people into Star Wars fandom. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. The reason being, honestly, what made me love Star Wars so much is the villain within Star Wars, are the villains within Star Wars. There's more than one, obviously. And I'm a firm believer of the greater the villain, the greater the story, regardless of whatever kind of story it is. That's just genuinely my view. It's just a basic sort of initiation of a story for me. So when it comes to Star Wars, I just love the villains. I love the Sith, how they affect the story, how Palpatine did things, how cool Darth Maul was, etc. So what we're doing here is we're talking about the villain bracket. Now, there's so many villains within Star Wars. There's so many heroes, but there's so many villains. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to compare villains, pit them up against each other, just so we could choose amongst us how great and how cool we felt the villains were. Not necessarily who'd win in a fight, but how cool, like how much we'd resonate with each villain. So we've pitted them into different categories: force users, military generals, etc., bounty hunters, and so on. So here we are doing them category by category, and then by the end of each category, when we have a champion for each category, we'll then do the next step. So Brian, tell me which one we have got up to until this moment.
Well, which category we're on, you mean?
Yeah, well, which category?
We're on military figures at this point.
Within the category.
The last one we had, the last villain bracket we had, you guys voted on it on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, and on our Twitter account. And it was Grand Admiral Ray Sloan and Grand Admiral Thrawn, who was cooler. And who do you think won that one? That one's pretty obvious in my opinion.
The whole point is also that we get to learn. I may not have explained this well enough, but the whole point is that we all get to learn so much more about Star Wars by visiting all these different villains. I certainly have. I definitely have. I am the greenest of all of our fellow Star Wars Canon Podcast panelists and
we're gonna fix that.
Hosts. I am the greenest by far. So me learning about all these different villains is such a great way for me to tackle Star Wars. I just love it. So for us to pit them against each other and have you guys vote for who you think is the coolest is fantastic for me because I get to do the background research. I get to read more stuff than I ever thought I would.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. So Thrawn won the last one, which I kind of saw.
I mean, if he
coming.
didn't, it would be a problem. So.
Yeah, I think so. And because we are on our final 2 for military figures, we're not even going to spin the wheel. It's only 2 left. We already know who it's going to be. This week's villain bracket is going to be Grand Moff Tarkin versus General Pride from The Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
So, Usef, you know a little something about Tarkin. I know you read that novel, Tarkin, and I know you really enjoyed that. So, for those that may not have read the novel for Tarkin, I know you've got a moment in that book that you love. What's a little something about Tarkin?
Because you love that moment. Like, you pushed me to love that moment so much.
I know. I love that moment
for good reason. Like, I agree. So yeah. Tarkin, people who have watched the movies, as in episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, will only know Tarkin from episode 4 because he died in episode 4. Tarkin is the general, the military general. I can't remember the name of the actor for the life of me right now. Just
Peter Cushing.
Thank you, Cushing.
Peter Cushing. I got you.
So he, he speaks like this, and he's fantastic, and he's got his military regalia on, his uniform on, and he's fantastic. And now withdraw now, in sight of victory. It's that sort of thing where he's so sure of himself and so arrogant. But that's not Tarkin. What Tarkin is so much deeper than all of that. It's the power that he has had growing up to become an officer within the Empire. This man has become an officer since, he's been on this journey since before the Empire was the Empire, since before Order 66. This man is so clever and so ingenious in himself and instinctively sharp, that when he became an officer, he recognized that Vader was Anakin. This man developed within himself such a powerful, resonating aura that he was recruited within the Empire, within the military, even though he was just some aristocrat off on his home planet. So he grew up as an aristocrat. And there's a line in there which Brian has told me about. This is the one I was referring to earlier. He is supposed to inherit this title from his parents, from his dynasty of his family's dynasty. And there's a rite of passage within his family. So he's supposed to go out on a challenge, a physical challenge, to survive a night or two in the wilderness.
It's the whole summer. It's the whole summer. It's the whole summer.
Oh yeah. Oh,
it's the whole summer.
Thank you. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. It's a whole summer of him surviving it with not just wild animals, but harsh terrain, crevices, no technology, no gadgets, nothing. And before he goes off, he looks to his father, he looks to his family, he goes, "Will you miss me? Will you be upset if I don't come back?" And then his literal father looks at him and he goes, "Well, yes, I'd miss you. I mean, you won't have been worthy of the Tarkin name, but we will miss you." Holy crap, people. Like, listen, this man
That's cold.
Who becomes second to only Palpatine, who becomes second to only Darth Sidious, who recognizes the importance of Darth Sidious and what he's doing to this empire and just how powerful his manifestation is. So how do we know this, by the way? Let's just talk about this a little bit. So how do we see his power manifest? Every other comic book that we see talking about the Imperial power and different military tactics and who gives the orders where, he shows up there. Novels like Lost Stars, novels like, honestly, any other novel where you see the Empire show up, it's Tarkin at the head of it. Not Palpatine. Palpatine's always the hidden one. He's always the one at the back. He's only the one who shows up when you're talking about the Sith. and the Force and the dark side of the Force. You never really talk about Palpatine unless you talk about the Force. You never really talk about Vader unless you talk about Vader and the Sith and Obi-Wan, etc. So it's just fantastic for me to see such a villain drawn up, not so clearly, but so vividly, is what I would say.
Yeah.
So I know that was a lot to talk about, so clearly I have a favorite, but let's talk about Pride for a moment. So
Yeah.
General Pride, if you guys have seen episode 7, 8, and 9, now we all have our own opinions about what the sequel trilogy is. And for example, me and Brian both aligned ourselves to a certain level. I'm not entirely sure that we both see it the same way, but for us, I think it's not a trilogy. It's just a bunch of movies. It's just 3 movies in a row. They're not necessarily a trilogy because the story just doesn't line up, etc. That being said, it's a cool story. It's interesting. It's fantastic because there's like the First Order and it's cool. So what General Pride is, so who he is, if you watch episode 9, he's the guy who sort of, all of a sudden when you're watching episode 9, you see this new sort of general within the First Order show up. He's cool. He's such a powerful impact. He's such a fantastic individual because he just commands respect and he just powers through. He is what you'd expect from the evil general who's leading us through. What I would ask Brian, since he's much more knowledgeable than I am, has General Pride shown up before, not just the sequel trilogy, but has he shown up in comics and novels before then? Have we seen him in the Clone Wars? We haven't, no?
It wasn't anything Clone Wars. It was there was a 4-issue run that came out before the Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
Called Allegiant, because he's the Allegiant General.
I remember Allegiant.
And it's him fighting.
I mean, I didn't read it, but I remember.
If I remember right, I know he popped. It's been a minute since I've read it. It's obviously 6 or 7 years since I read it. But yeah, there was a 4-issue comic run that he popped up in. That was kind of the introduction to him, and what I need to go back and reread it again. But yes, he has popped up. I think he was a great villain in a horrible movie. In a horrible movie, I think he was a great villain in a horrible movie.
So he did what I wish General Hux continued to do.
Yes.
So I love.
He's what Hux should have been. Yes.
I loved Hux in episode 7. I loved Hux. He was almost Hitler. Sorry for my. I mean,
no, you're absolutely right.
When I say that, but genuinely speaking, I wish Hux kept it going. I wish they kept Hux going
instead of
that being said,
comedy beat.
So they didn't continue with Hux, and they kept Pride going. And then Pride had his own. What's the word? When he died, when they killed him because the ships were dying, and when the ships were blowing up, and he was just exploding in front of a screen. That was such an unceremonious. That was such an unceremonious death for such a powerful villain. That's what I felt.
Yeah.
And
the way he dispatched Hux, Hux, and just turned around and just blew him away, just so unceremoniously. And and when he's talking to the Emperor after Leia dies, and he's like, the same way I served you in the old wars, I will serve you now.
That's what I'm talking about.
He was everything. He was a great villain. He was the diamond inside of that giant dried turd of a movie.
Yep.
Is what he was. So if I had to choose between these two, Pride's great. I think he's an awesome villain. I think he was wasted on the movie that he was in. Had he popped up in 7, 8, and 9 and just kept that same beat all the way through, I think he could have really gave a run for winning this one, in my opinion. But I gotta go with the classic OG Tarkin, man. I love my Tarkin. He's freaking awesome. And seeing him pop up in Rogue One again back in 2016 when that movie came out, it was so cool to see him back on the screen again. I loved that Tarkin novel. Like you said, he figured out who Vader was. And so I really, really enjoy Tarkin a lot. If I think I'm gonna vote on this, I'm gonna vote Tarkin.
I'm going to be annoying and say that I love Tarkin and Pride for different reasons, and that I genuinely wish that we had a Star Wars that was... So the beautiful thing about Star Wars is the Force, right? It's the one thing that makes. I mean, if you had to compare Star Wars with any other sort of franchise story, etc., it would just be the Force that makes you unique, right?
Yeah, the Jedi
So-
and the lightsabers. Yeah.
Absolutely. But actually, my favorite thing about Star Wars is how you counter the Force, how you counter lightsabers. Because I mean, lightsabers make you. I mean, if we consider like laser swords being your weapon, how am I going to counter that? Like, you know what I mean? So considering
So cool.
so considering these guys building this empire from military tradition alone and discipline and just fantastic showing up on time and doing your job. I just love the way Roman Empire does things. So if I'm going to compare what I love about the Roman Empire and the novels that I read there, and I'm going to compare Star Wars novels, I'm just going to want to read up on Tarkin and General Pride. Do you know what I mean? And that is genuinely my favorite thing about Star Wars now. It's not going to be necessarily Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, etc. It might be blasphemous to say it, but honestly, my favorite thing about Star Wars, if I was going to read about these two guys, I'd absolutely love it.
Oh yeah.
So
No, I
please
think that's
get
great.
in touch and tell us who you love most.
Yeah. You guys heard it. You guys go to our YouTube channel if you're already there watching this video. Head to our Facebook page, head to our Twitter account. Links for all those are in the description below. And vote on who you think is cooler. Not who would win in a fight, who you think is cooler. And on our next episode, we will read the results, and we will get into the next category for the villain bracket. And it's going to start getting real interesting here pretty soon because we're starting to get into some Force user stuff. It's going to be interesting. So that's our villain bracket for the week. Usef, let's talk about the Queen's Bloom. So the Queen's Bloom, for those of you that don't know, first off, here's what we're doing. Usef, we're getting Usef to read the Star Wars novels. We're getting him into some more of the expanded universe stuff that he hasn't read before. And I thought, what better way to do it than to do it chronologically, correct? So what we're doing is now we have the High Republic, and actually the High Republic just wrapped up this past week, or a week before, I think, with Trials of the Jedi. Haven't read it yet. Need to get caught up. I'm like 3.5 books behind. I think right now I'm on Tears of the Nameless, and I still got Tears of the Nameless, Beware the Nameless, and Into the Light to read before I can read Trials of the Jedi. So I've got a little ways to go. But Usef hasn't read any of the High Republic novels proper yet. And so what we're doing is I was like, let's just sit down, and each week we'll talk about a new piece of canon that he has read, that he has newly read. He's a new reader, and we're going to review this stuff. But what's interesting about this and why I like this dynamic is so far I've read almost all of the High Republic except for those 3.5 books that I'm behind before the finale. And I'm going to go back and reread these with Usef. And so as we go through them, he's going to have this really fresh perspective on it as the new reader, and I'm going to be the veteran reader on this. And we're going to see what kind of dynamics we can come up with on our opinions for these things and stuff. So we went all the way back to the very beginning of the canon timeline at this point. We went all the way back to, what was the year? 396 BBY. This is 396 years before the original Star Wars film. And it's High Republic Phase 2. For those of you that don't know, the High Republic was released Phase 1, kind of in the middle. Phase 2 went back to prequel stuff. And then Phase 3 went back to sequel stuff, kind of in the same order as the Star Wars trilogies kind of went. So we're reading it chronologically, though, which is kind of different than how I read it. I read it as it came out 1 and then went back and read 2 and then started 3. Usef is reading this chronologically. So this is going to be a lot of fun to kind of get the different perspective on it, whatnot. And so if you go back to the very beginning as of right now, the very beginning of canon timeline is a short story called The Queen's Bloom. It's in Phase 2 of the High Republic, and it's found in a collection of short stories called Tales of Light and Life. Usef, this is your first dabble into an entire new era of Star Wars. New characters, this is you're going into this completely blind. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into, because I'm telling you right now, there's times in the High Republic where they stomp your heart. I'm just letting you know there's going to be emotional damage along this journey. And from what I've heard, the last novel is absolutely phenomenal, and it just stomped everybody. It just broke people. So that's what we're going to crescendo with, is we're going to work towards Trials of the Jedi and read all this stuff. So Usef, you're doing it differently. I'm a book reader. I have to have the book or my Kindle in my hand. You're an audiobook guy.
Yes.
So you listen to The Queen's Bloom, this short story. Before we get into what happens in the story, what was like your overall, like, what were you expecting out of it? Were you nervous going into it with new characters and not knowing kind of what was going on yet? Or, I mean, what was kind of your what's the word I'm looking for? What were you anticipating in this story?
No, absolutely. I mean, firstly, thank you, Brian, so much for actually making this, starting this endeavor, because Brian he's taken the onus upon himself to make sure that I get into High Republic, because I've been talking about it for months that I want to get into it. I still don't know where to start. It's interesting to me.
Oh, years. You've been talking about it for years.
Whoa. I mean, I was talking about getting into it. I was just talking about it in general. I was talking about getting into it for months. And then Brian, God bless him, being like just a person who just loves Star Wars and likes all of us as a team, just being like, are you serious about getting into this? Then let's do it. And he helped me make sure that, let's map this out, just get into it, and let me be your guide. And this is going to be our way on the podcast to show people that there's many angles to the Star Wars universe. It's not all the same stuff that we know and love, but it's not all the same stuff that we know that's going to be the typical Star Wars stuff that you can get into. High Republic is going to be fantastic. That being said, why am I saying it's going to be fantastic? Because I started this. It's so interesting. This short story, so just as Brian said, did I have any expectations going in? Yeah, I thought it would be huge and big and huge bangs and fantastic. This started out so small. It started out just a teeny tiny little adventure of this guy and his family. But it's so clear. If any of you has ever read novels that start with small people within large empires, you can tell how large that empire is from the outlook of those small-ish characters in the way the writer talks about it. And it's just so cool, so interesting. This little small adventure, we're going to talk about it now, but it shows such a perspective of such a larger thing going on beyond them. And I know I can sort of cheat and say, hey guys, so this character is called Greylark. Is he important? And I can sort of Google the name. I can sort of do this. I can sort of do that without burning the whole, what's the word, like spoiling the whole
right.
feature of the novels that I'm watching. That I'm going to read. But no, like this small little adventure was so quick, so active, and so cool that when it came time to actually reading something else that was High Republic related, like an excerpt online or something, I felt right at home. The pace was on mark. It was fantastic. It was so good. Anybody who hasn't read High Republic until now, stay tuned. Follow it with me. I haven't read High Republic until now. So come with me on this journey. I hope we're going to like it because there's so much. So my problem with High Republic isn't a problem per se. It's just, oh crap, there's so much and so fast. High Republic hit us so thick. And I never expected High Republic to be released so thick and fast. These guys, these pros, talk about Brian, talk about JG and Stephen Hall and Richard J.
Pro, I'm 3.5 books behind. I'm a real
Nick
pro.
Alvarez and I are just looking at you guys on the podcast. We're just going, what now? I'm sorry. What is this and why? Not just what, but why? Like, who said this is? Are there? Look, there's no comic books. Well, there are. Oh,
there's comics too.
Well,
yeah,
there's
ridiculous
no
amounts of
there
comics.
Well, there's no movies. No, there aren't. What am I following? No. You follow the novels. You follow the story.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful tandem of a story that uses the Force. And if anybody's interested to see it on TV, the only thing that High Republic showed TV-wise or film-wise is Acolyte until now. So I
That's the
really
closest,
like
yeah.
Acolyte. And I have my own reasons for it. And Brian has no reasons for liking or disliking. And everybody else on the show, on the podcast, has their own reasons for liking and disliking. But the whole point behind the High Republic is that even though it's hundreds of years before, Phantom Menace, even, the point is that you see a different view of the Force and of the challenges between the dark side and the light side. And
And of the Jedi.
and of the Jedi and of the Sith,
Yeah.
therefore.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. You know what I mean? Because that's exactly what I want. I want a deeper view of what is possible within the light and the dark side. Period.
What's really cool about the High Republic also is that it really sets up the stage for the fall of the Jedi. It really starts to plant those seeds of the hubris and of all that and why the Jedi ended up falling in the first place. But
Right.
this story, like you said, was very small. And that's what I really think is interesting about the High Republic is how it started, like you said, so small. It was such a tiny thing, and then it just blew up into this massive thing, and it just started to crescendo into this giant galaxy-wide, oh crap. And so going through it chronologically like this, the same thing's going to happen with this phase 2 that we're going through first. With you're going to see the same thing. It starts as something very small, and then it slowly just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then finally it's this massive climax for phase 2, and then we jump ahead like 100 years to like phase 1, and then you're going to get introduced to a whole new group of Jedi again and a whole new group of characters, but it still builds off of what came before in phase 2. So I think this is a lot of fun. I think this is actually a really good starting point for Usef to start building his understanding of the High Republic and like building that world and that universe and everything. I think this is a really good one to start with. This is a short story that follows a character named Axel Greylark, and he's at a university, and he's kind of this rebellious, self-serving teenager, really, pranking teachers and faking sick to get out of class and all this other stuff, and skipping class, cutting class, whatever. And he comes from a family of I guess you could say aristocrats that are in politics.
Overachievers.
Overachievers, yeah.
Yep.
His mother is running for chancellor at this point.
Yep.
In the galaxy. And the galaxy actually has 2 chancellors right now. I don't know if you know that from this story, but in the first novel we read, you're going to find out the High Republic era has 2 chancellors. One that stays on Coruscant and does like all the desk work and makes the face and the capital and all that and blah, blah, blah. And then you've got one that goes to the Outer Rim territories and visits and kind of makes face that way. So his mother, her name is Keong, is running for chancellor at this point. And he's at this university, and he's trying to fake sick because there's an event coming up called the Queen's Bloom on the planet that they're on. And the Queen's Bloom is basically each year, during this particular season, there's this event on the planet where all these plants, and there's a mixture of like the moisture in the air with the like the pollen that's in the air, and it lands on everything, and it makes everything outside glow for a little bit. This bioluminescent glow. And rich people come from systems around and light years around to come witness the Queen's Bloom and to see this moment when everything starts to glow. And Axel's trying to get out of being a part of the service because the university's putting on this show. He's trying to get out of being a part of the service of everything, faking sick.
He's got a girlfriend.
He's got a girlfriend named Laylee. And there's this other guy that he sees as competition.
Like, what is this? Can I just ask this? Me being I don't know if everybody knows this, but I'm an actual Egyptian person. Like I actually live in the Middle East in Cairo, Egypt. I still find it weird that so much of Star Wars stuff is named after Middle Eastern names.
I know,
Like,
isn't it wild?
I mean,
It really
Tatooine, Tatooine, the planet, is a literal city. It's a small, nothing city in Morocco. Jeddah is named after Jeddah, which is a
Yeah.
city in Saudi Arabia. Layli, obviously, like Layli and Layla, which are two different names that are Arabic
Right.
names in the Middle East. There's so many other things. The Jedi themselves and the robes they wear are almost exactly the same as the Sufis wear that we wear here. They're not the same as like the actual jalabeyas and everything.
Sure.
Like the white, whatever that we wear. Anyway, Brian has had experience living and then deployed in the Middle East, so he knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, this is just another one of those, and it's not a famous one, Layli being in this short story, but
sure.
It was interesting to see just another reference, just another Middle Eastern reference within this, world, an amazing galaxy of Star Wars.
No, it's really cool. A lot of those names come from stuff like that.
The Greylarks. I'd like to ask you something.
Sure.
The Greylarks seem so. I may have tried to cheat just a little bit and try to investigate a little bit more into the High Republic because I've had some time on my hands. But
Sure.
I mean, the thing is that it does seem, and this is not something that I've honestly, this is not something that I've looked into. It does seem like the Greylarks are going to set up something really cool. And the way the story introduces not just Axel, but the way that the story ends with his father and stuff, it's so interesting that it seems like there's a dynasty going on, and it seems like it's going to keep going. So it's like, it's enticing me to be like, oh yeah, these guys are not necessarily good guys as in good, but good guys as in you want to pay attention to them.
Sure. Yeah. It's more like it's not so much you want to pay attention to what they're doing. You want to pay more attention to the relationships with these characters more than anything.
So there was this one phrase between Axel and the woman that ends up betraying Layli. You're gonna want to talk about this obviously in the story, but intrigued by his courage and his chaos is what I have written down here.
Yes,
and that's stuck with me so much because it's such a cool statement. Tell me about it.
So, full disclosure, this is a prequel story that was written after Phase 2 basically came out. So this is a prequel story. You've already read all of Phase 2, but if you read it as it came out, then this comes out. And so that was a nice little touch. You were talking about how the mother calls him the chaos and everything. That's kind of, they cross paths again several times throughout Phase 2, and that's her nickname for him is chaos. And so this is how he gets that nickname is everything that he does in this story in front of her and kind of impresses her and everything like that. That's why she ends up calling him my chaos. And so it's a very personal nickname, honestly. And when you're reading the books, in the order they came out, it's like, okay, yeah, that's a cool nickname. But then when you read this, you're like, oh, that was a very personal thing that she gave to him. So, they, as you said, they cross the mother in this story. Axel and his girlfriend Layli and this other guy that Axel sees as competition for Layli, they sneak off and they kind of crash the party where this Queen's Bloom thing is supposed to be taking place. And Axel realizes his mother and father are at the party, and they're supposed to be off planet. They're not even supposed to be here, and they're on the planet, and they're here for the Queen's Bloom. So they decide we're going to sneak back out. We're going to get out of here because he used his father's name to get in. So
he was so cool that he thought that he could impersonate his father. Well, he thought his father was off planet, so he was going to be like, "Yes, I am my father, Senator Greylark, of course." And he's like, "Oh, your father's actually over there." Oh shit!
Yeah, time to pop smoke and get out of here. So they try to sneak out through the kitchen and find the kitchen being held up by this group of people. The cooks are being ushered into the freezer at gunpoint, and they're like, "What is going on?" And there's this lady that is kind of leading everybody. Her name's Alicia. Is that her name? Is that how they pronounce it in the audiobook? Is Alicia?
Alicia. Or Alicia. Either Alicia or Alicia. I can't remember now, but yeah, it's either or.
See, and this is why I like you listening to the audiobooks more than reading, because I don't know how to pronounce some of these names. And when you
So
listen
many
to it,
effing names in Star Wars, they're all
yeah.
weird. I know.
Don't read
I'll
anything
write them down
Alexander
as we go
Freed
along.
wrote if you're not good with names.
I'll write them
Looking
down
at
as
you,
we go
Alphabet
along.
Squadron. And so they're there to basically rob everybody blind while they're paying attention to this Queen's Bloom thing.
Yep.
And so she takes his girlfriend Laylee at gunpoint and says, "You're going to help us." And so sends him and this
they're
other
just
guy
robbing
out,
people left,
Cosmo.
right, and center. Yeah. That's right.
They send them out to start pickpocketing the rich people.
Yep.
And Axel has this idea. He sees this guy with a blaster. He takes the blaster from the guy and basically says, "I'm going to get my girl back," and goes back and tries to rescue Laylee. And what happens, Usef, when he tries to rescue the one person he trusts?
He does a good job. So they
does a great job.
I mean, they do pickpocket a few of the guys, so they don't go back empty-handed, so everything seems fine. And then, bingo, bango, bongo, they're just like pointing everything. And then Axel goes, "Hey, you know what? I got her, and I'm pointing stuff at you right now. You stop this." And then Laylee, his girlfriend, turns the tables on him. She's like, "I'm sorry, what do you think you're doing?" And she just stops him in his tracks.
Yeah.
And he is shocked because turns out she's with them. She's the one who brought them there in the first place. And she stuns him. And he is shocked because he is used and he's upset.
Mm-hmm.
He's in a sort of, not craze per se, but he's just incredible, feeling incredulous and upset.
Yeah.
And he and his rival, now they have to make it out of there alive because Laylee is basically with them, with the gang. And she's like, "Yeah, I used you. This is what's going on now. And, you were just a means to an end. I was never meant to be in this academy, be a student, be this, be that.
All undercover.
I'm going off now." Yep, exactly. I'm going off now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. And then he just has to sort of get himself up he has to
pulls himself up by the bootstraps. Yeah, and he's just but and before they leave, the mother, like you said earlier, makes that comment. She's like, "I like you. I like your bravery and your chaos."
Oh yeah, she's intrigued.
We'll meet again. She says we'll meet again.
Chaos.
Yes, and so the mother, you find out later on, her name's Alicia, Alicia, something like that.
Alicia or Alicia, either or.
But her title later on, when we get into some of the novels, is the mother of this group called the Path of the Open Hand, and we're going to be getting into that, in the first couple of books we read here. And she says, "We'll meet again." And they do. They cross paths several times. And it's really interesting. And so a couple of things I want you to pay attention to, Usef, going forward from this point on. Now that you've been introduced to Axel Greylark, Keon Greylark, his mother, and Alicia, yeah. Now that you've been introduced to them, I want you to pay attention to the relationship between Axel and his mother as we go through phase 2. And I want you to pay attention to the mother as a character. Not necessarily her relationships with him, but just as a character. Because I'll give you a little bit of a little peek behind the curtain. She seems so nice and innocent right now. And as the story goes on, more and more layers of her get peeled back. And you start to see her for who she really is. And it's awesome. It is so cool to see this slow fall into madness, and it's great. So and it's being compelled by outside events, things that are happening in the books. It's happening, that's the kind of stuff that's making us happen. So pay attention to her and the events happening in the galaxy, what they're trying to accomplish, what's blowing up in their face, what's working, and see what it's doing to the mother as we go through the entire phase 2. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think this is a great start to the High Republic. It was written after the fact, after phase 2. I think it's a great starting point. Axel is a huge character. He's a very important character in all of phase 2. There was one little cameo too in this story that had you read the books before this came out, you'd know who it is. But since we're reading them chronologically, you don't.
Oh,
It says in
Jedi.
the story, the Jedi. He bumps into a Jedi Padawan
On her
during
own.
this thing. When she's on her own, she's got 2 lightsabers. And it didn't say her name, but remember he had that itchy finger like he wanted to take one of the lightsabers.
Oh, he wanted to
Keep
pinch her
that in
lightsaber.
mind also. Keep that in mind also, okay? Because they're going to cross paths again also. And actually, those two have an awesome relationship later on through phase 2. But keep in mind, that's going to be a callback. We're going to get to a certain point in one of these books, and you're going to go, oh, the Queen's Bloom when he wanted to take her lightsaber. You're gonna think about that. I promise.
Okay, cool.
There's little seeds getting planted here in this story
Isn't
that you
the
may
best
not even
thing, though?
realize.
That's exactly why I love these things.
Yes.
Like when they all, connect.
Yes, and that's one thing that I think the High Republic has done a really great job at, is everything connecting the way it does. I feel like, so I'll say this. I'm reading some phase 3 right now, trying to finish up phase 3 so that we can do all this, go back and restart with phase 2 again and go 1 and 3. I will say this. I've really, really loved the High Republic for like the vast majority of it. There's been a couple of books that I'm just like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to read them again with Usef. Oh crap. And they're not great. And there's been some things in it that I was just like, oh man. And honestly, like, we just finished it like last week. I feel like it should have ended a year ago. If I'm being honest, I feel like they could have shortened it and ended it like a year ago. Of course, I haven't read the last 3 books, so I keep that in mind also. But I feel like it may have drug on a little bit, but that doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. I haven't finished it yet. You know what I'm saying? So maybe it's going to be a lot of payoff. I don't know. If you guys have read Trials of the Jedi, don't say anything. But I think this is a really great start. Like I said, it's planting a lot of seeds. I think this is going to be a really fun little journey to get through. And then once we get done with High Republic, Usef, we're going to be moving on to some of the other novels, and we're going to be getting into everything with the comics. And one of the things that Usef and I are going to have to figure out is, because he's in Egypt and I'm in Kansas.
Actual Egypt.
Yeah, he's actually in Egypt. There's certain things that are available, more readily available to me here, canon content wise, that he doesn't necessarily have access to there. So we're going to have to figure out a way, like my comics. I have every issue of every comic that's come out since 2015. I've never missed an issue. We're going to have to figure out how to get these issues to Usef so that he can read these comics, because there's a lot of High Republic comics, dude. There's a lot of them. And it's the way that they pieced everything together with the High Republic. The way it works chronologically is like, we read this short story, right? Next week, we're going to talk about 2 more short stories that are in Tales of Enlightenment. And then there's like a novel to talk about. And then there's like 7 comic issues, and then another novel, and then like 2 more comic issues, then a book. And so it's like, chronologically, it's all over the place, right? So
Okay.
I'm going to map this out the best I can to keep it all chronological so that we can do this. And if there's a couple times where we need to maybe skip some comic issues to go read a book so that we get a big event happening, so when we go back and read the comics, we know where they're happening. We might have to do that, because like when we get to the Battle of Jeddah, that's a huge thing. Like, that's a massive thing. That's a big radio drama, which there's a lot happening during the Battle of Jeddah. There's books that are happening during it. The audio drama is happening. There's comics happening during it. Like, there's like 9 or 10 story threads that are happening during the Battle of Jeddah that we're going to have to, we might do like the audio drama and then go back and do each like arc one at a time and go through them. We're going to be on the Battle of Jeddah for a long time, buddy. I'm just letting you know. So, honestly, what did you think of the story? I mean, if you were going to give it a rating out of, how many stars are you going to give it? I mean, do you recommend this story? Because one of the tricky things too about High Republic is it's hard to say, I recommend this book, but not this one, because all of them tell one massive story. So it's kind of hard to say whether you recommend the story or not. It's more, what did you walk away from this story with?
I don't think I'm going to be able to answer that question based on what you just said, because I'm going to have to read more books to understand. But that being said, this lovely little adventure is super cool. Like, I easily see this sort of story being a great side quest in a good video game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how it makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, can I say something? So there was this one thing in the story, in the book, excuse me, in this little sort of short story, that I really want to try the fried caterpillars that they were serving on platters. For
Ooh.
some reason, they just described those in detail. I'm just like, ooh,
Yeah, it's
fried
like-
caterpillars. Interesting. I might have to go to Vietnam or something to try those. I'm not entirely sure. We don't get those in the Middle East nor in
Going to
America.
Nam.
Assuming.
I'm going to Nam. I'm gonna give me some fried caterpillars.
Southeast
Oh my
Asia
God.
for your insects, But yeah, no. Sorry, that's a little side note.
No, you got.
But you see what I mean? Like, it was such a fun little adventure.
It was.
And honestly, that is a genuine sort of review that I would have for it. It's such a nice, good story. I would easily see this being a really good side quest in a video game. Easily. If you have a main character and you're off doing this side quest, it'd be fantastic. It's such a good little story with a nice little betrayal, with a fantastic... There's so much, by the way, this story, so much detail. I felt like the Queen's Bloom in itself, like the event, was really important, that it was going to lead to something. That's how well it's described, and that's how important it was. That's so cool, and I loved it.
Well,
and
so
what I said earlier,
here...
that these Greylarks seem to be leading to some sort of dynasty. Like, this family is important. That like these guys aren't just... So clearly, this Brian must be leading me on to something. Must be.
There's something coming. There's something coming.
You see what I mean?
You were sitting there saying
these guys.
As you were sitting there saying that too, I was thinking about the title Queen's Bloom. It's not necessarily just about the phenomenon happening to Queen's Bloom. It could be with the mother too. Like, you know what I mean? That flower starting to and so it's kind of the introduction of the Queen. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Do I see Axel again?
Do what?
Do I see Axel again?
Oh yeah, several times. He is all through Phase 2. He's in every single book. He's very important. He's pivotal. That's the word. He's pivotal in season.
Pivotal.
He's pivotal in Phase 2. So.
And the Greylark dynasty, is that ever important, or is that like not really as a?
Oh no, I'll tell you this. I'll give you this little nugget for the next book.
Important. You said he's important.
Yes, I'll give you the little nugget for the next book. She does win the election. She does become chancellor.
Oh, okay.
So he ends up being the chancellor's kid, and then he's this rebellious, like, problem child, and she's trying to like keep her, like, you know what I mean, keep her image up as being chancellor. So there's a really cool dynamic coming with them, and I'm excited to show it to you. I really am. So. Fantastic. The Queen's Bloom, guys. If you've read it, comment below. Let us know what your guys' thoughts were on this short story. If you haven't read it, I would definitely go pick. I would get into the High Republic with us. You read it with us. How long did it take you to read this, Usef? Like an hour, maybe?
No, not even. Not even.
Yeah. So get into it with us. Yeah. Go get the audiobook of it. Go get Tales of Light and Life. Buzz through it before next week. And just kind of get into this with us. The next thing we're going to be reading.
The other stories in Tales of Light and Life as well. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, he kind of listened ahead a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
He was listening to him out of context because he was like, when do I stop? And I'm like, oh, crap. He's like, you're 6 stories deep? Oh, crap. But the next thing we're going to read is going to be some short stories from Star Wars Insider Magazine called Tales from Enlightenment, I believe is what they're called. Tales of Enlightenment. And Enlightenment is actually a bar on Jeddah, in Jeddah City. And so these short stories, I'm going to get them to you. I've got them in like a bound hardback. They did some for Phase 2 and for Phase 1. And so I've got them in bound hardback. What I'll probably do is scan them into my email and just email them to you so that you can read, because it's a giant, big book that we just open up and it's got full sheets of so that's probably what I'll do. I'll probably just scan them and send them to you so that you can at least read those. And then after that, I think next week we'll talk about those 2 stories because they kind of go, it's one massive story, but it's 2 parts. They go together. And then the week after is when we get into the novels. And I think we're going to be going hard on the books. So anything else, Usef, before we call it a night?
If somebody wanted to get a question onto the Star Wars Canon Podcast, how would they do that?
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. So one of the things we do here on the Star Wars, it's been a minute. Sorry, I'm a little rusty. It's been a while since we've done an episode. Yeah, usually we do a mailbag segment, but because it's been so long since we've done an episode, I figured we wouldn't do it tonight. We would just do the review, and then let you guys know. I'm really glad you said that. You're such a good co-host. We usually do a mailbag segment also. So if you guys have questions about Star Wars canon, anything like that, you can send them in to us at starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com. You can send them to us there. We'll go through each week and pick a few out, and we'll answer them here on the show. So if you guys have any questions, send them in for next week, and we'll get them on. Thank you for reminding me. I'm glad you said that. Don't forget to subscribe and follow the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. We're going to start doing episodes again every Saturday night, 7 p.m. is when we're going to be releasing.
We're going to do our best to stay up to date, and maybe you can stay up to date with me on my journey on this High Republic journey with this amazing Star Wars stuff. So, and any other news, obviously, Brian is going to be, on top of this, and I'm just going to
trying to.
I'm just going to be gliding along, hanging on to his coattails, just as he tries to navigate us through this. And obviously, we have a large team. We're fantastic. I love this team. It's fantastic. It's not just Brian, our grandmaster, but we also have Richard, JG, Steven, and Nick Albert. So we're all going to be so happy to have you along with us. I'm very excited to get this going again.
You brought everybody up. What's interesting is Steven and JG both live in Pennsylvania. They've met.
Yep.
And then you live in Cairo, and Richard J lives in Wales. You two have met in person. You and I have never met in person. You guys have met in person. No, never. I've never met any of you guys. But then Nick Albers lives in Texas, and I live in Kansas. I'm thinking about taking a bike ride, like a motorcycle ride down to meet Nick. One of these days in the group chat, you guys are going to get a photo of me and Nick just sitting at like a Raising Cane's or something. Just like, hey!
Fantastic.
That would be a lot of fun. And then, we've got it. We're trying to plan a trip for Celebration.
Wouldn't that just be
in
amazing?
San Diego? We're going to try to put that one together because I know Steven and JG are going to want to try to make it. I know Richard J is coming, and I know Nick is coming. So if you can come, I'm dying
to make it. I'm dying to make it.
It's gonna. Yeah. I think that would be a really cool place for all of us to meet for the first time. Since it was Star Wars that kind of brought us all together, I feel like it would be appropriate to go enjoy Star Wars together the first time we all hang out. You know what I mean? 100%. And so 100%. I think that'd be an absolute blast. So anyway, enough rambling. We'll call it a night for this week. Usef, thank you for joining me tonight. I know it's super late where you're at. Thank you for staying up.
My ever guide, into this amazing angle of Star Wars. And thank you all for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. May the Force be with all of you.
Until next week, may the Force be with you. You've just been listening to the latest episode of the Star Wars Canon Podcast. I'm Brian Miller, joined by my co-host, Usef Waly. You can stream new episodes of the podcast every Saturday night at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Anchor.fm, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/1138productions. Be sure to like and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening in on. If you'd like to get a question on the show, you can send it in to us at starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com. Until next week, keep it civil, and may the Force be with you.